I was making a video the other day about stealing signs of all things, and I ended up talking about approach, something that I've never made a video about before. I don't know why, it just never occurred to me, but when I was writing last summer the book called Metal Ropes, that's published through smallballsuccess.com. You can get it through Amazon or you can go to the website, but I did have a discussion of the approach that I think hitters of the Deadball Era took, and it's in some ways I think it could give us a lot of ideas about what would be successful today. Now, Ty Cobb is one of the most interesting guys, of course, of that generation, and I don't think I would recommend the approach that he appears to have taken. I'll never figure out how to explain the phrase pull hitting to the opposite field, which I ran across in F.C. Lane and some of the other writers from about a century ago in the context of Ty Cobb. How do you pull the ball to the opposite field? And the only way I have ever been able to explain that phrase to myself is by sort of reconstructing the Cobb swing this way. I think he set up right on top of the plate typically. You know, Cobb, nothing was 100% sure all the time, because that was part of his game too, just to change everything around. But most of the time, I think he's on top of the plate, and of course he has that funky little, his feet are almost together, but when he'd take his stride, I think he'd actually open up, and it's almost as if he wanted pitchers to throw at him. Of course, it'd be easy to bunt the ball or do various things with it, but since he's opening up, when the pitch comes inside, he can trail the barrel with his hands, and even if it's chasing him off the plate, he can get the barrel late on the pitch and hit it the other way. And with that step, he's already, he's like Ichiro, he's taking off from first base already, so he doesn't really have to push the ball over the infielders to get it into left field. All he has to do is get it on the ground, and it's almost like beating out a drag bunt or something. So I think that was Cobb's approach. And of course, if the ball is off speed or if it's a breaking ball, he's able to pull that even if it's inside. So he was hitting the ball all over the place. He was said to be a place hitter, which means that he could put the ball wherever he wanted to. And sometimes I think Ty would feed that myth about himself, but I don't really. In some of his older comments, he admitted, with a lot of other players of the time, you have to react to the pitch. You can't really put it just where you want to. So I think he was, like other guys, very adjustable. Now, I think that it was, and I would recommend this more though, I think it was much more common for guys to stand way back from the plate. We know that Hornsby did this, and in the generation before him, we know that Honus Wagner stood way back from the plate, not back toward the catcher, but from the plate. We know that Napoleon Lajoie did this. Little footnote, by the way, a little French lesson for you guys who've been criticizing my pronunciation of the name. Lajoie's parents came from Quebec about 4 years before he was born, in Rhode Island, and that community was speaking like 60% French as of 1900. They would not have said Lajoie, with apologies to Bob Costas and all the other guys out there who anglicized the name. I'm pretty confident that Napoleon would have grown up saying it La Joie. Even their French Catholic Church, the whole thing, they were speaking French. So, I think La Joie might have been the biggest concession he would have made to us stupid English speakers. C'est ce qui est bien probable. C'est ce qui me semble. But anyways, the hitters of this era, they are more likely to stand back from the plate. Enough of that. But anyway, they're going to stride into the plate and probably, again, be late, looking fastball. This is what I said in the sign stealing video. I think this is the typical approach. They're almost going to hit the ball out of the catcher's mitt. And of course they're looking fastball, because you always look fastball. So we have them back here, and they're going to try to hit the ball right about here, with the foot and the hands coming down almost at the same time, because that's their method. And they're probably going to, with that strong forward weight shift, they're going to be able to straighten out a liner right down the line, a lot of them. Now, that's an approach. That's you go into the box thinking that that's what you want. What if you don't? I'm just talking about Cobb having to adjust to different pitches. What if you don't get a fastball on the outside corner? Well, if it's on the inside, I see writers of the time claiming this too, and I don't think any hitter could actually, even if he's getting his foot down really late, I don't think he's putting it down after he sees where the ball is coming. I think you have to commit yourself before that. But even if you kind of jam yourself, you can still do the Cobb thing, because your weight is shifting forward. You're going to get fisted, but you're shifting way forward, so you're trailing the handle, and you still have a good chance of pushing it the other way. Now that also sets you up to be a little early on a breaking ball or an off-speed pitch. And this is where it gets really interesting, because you can tell this by looking at what little video evidence and photographic evidence there is from a century and more ago, but the hitters would stand not only far away from the plate, but they would also stand even with the plate. They didn't want to be back where the catcher is, like a hitter today. Very few of them would ever set up deep in the box toward the catcher. They were doing that so they could, remember, they had to deal with scuff balls and spit balls and shine balls and all kinds of things that we don't have to deal with today. So they were having to fight a lot of different breaks, and they would conduct that fight by setting up as close to the pitcher as they could get. That meant that they were more vulnerable to the fastball, but see, since they were thinking opposite field anyway, they were planning to be late on the fastball so they could still get to the breaking ball before it had a lot of break, and that would be the pitch that they would pull. And they could pull it with, I imagine, with some authority. So, well, I'm a little early, but because I have my weight shift going forward, even if the bat comes out of my top hand, it's still going somewhat downward into the pitch, and I'm able to, it still has most of its momentum, and I'm probably able to backspin that pitch so that it shoots out of the infield and maybe carries all the way to the wall. So, hey, that's a pretty darn good strategy, even for today. I think you won't see hitters today, of course, doing very many things like that, because, among other reasons, the bat is 31, 32 inches long, and it has a very skinny handle as opposed to the big, thick barrel. So if you did have a pitch coming in on your fists, and you're stepping into it, and suddenly I've got to fight it off, well, the chances of you being able to take that thing up around the trademark and hit it over the shortstop's head are probably not really good. You're more likely just to break your bat. So that's more of a, I think, a good approach, a good swing for a long bat with a mild taper running up and down. It's one of the reasons we don't do that sort of thing now. Just one other, that's all I got to say about approach for today, but I wanted to mention one other thing that I discovered by looking at old videos of, I think it was the 1944, the Cardinals were in several series during and right after World War II. It was one of those years, when they made the videos, they would have the hitters, it's kind of funny, they would have them stand for the cameraman. The camera would be down here, and the hitter would get ready to hit the pitch, and then you'd shift to live video and show action on the field. But they weren't able to zoom in and get the hitters as they're actually waiting on the pitch. So they would do that separately, and the camera would always be down here at a low angle, so you wouldn't see that the stands were empty and the hitters actually just posing with nobody around. But it was interesting. I noticed that so many of the hitters were actually doing this pump that I use, even in the mid-40s. They're doing this. They're going to get the handle in their knocker knuckles by lowering it. And I don't know if many of them use the lift to get a little hop into their load. I doubt that they did by that point. But you can do that, as I've suggested. And because I saw several of them doing that, I have no doubt that this strong forward weight shift and the linear swing into the ball was still going on. And you know, a lot of those guys, again, the idea with you can do this with that weight shift and just directing yourself linearly into the ball. Idea is to think to the opposite field, maybe even move up toward the pitcher a little bit, but always look fastball, think to the opposite field. If you get fooled a little bit by a breaking ball, well, that might be the one that you hit for extra bases. It doesn't hurt to be out in front with this approach. And that was why I brought up this subject in the context of stealing signs, because if you have an approach like this, you don't really need to steal signs. It allows you to adjust so instantaneously to what the pitcher's throwing that, I don't know, if you're good, if you have quick hands, you can deal with practically anything.